right, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're getting ready to get started. Welcome to DDRC members, staff, and guests. We ask for your patience during this meeting. Multiple staff members are behind the scenes to make sure that the meeting runs smoothly and all applicants and citizens are able to communicate with the commission at the appropriate time. If you are watching virtually, you may see images of anyone present at the meeting. However, images of anyone participating virtually will not be visible.
In addition to watching the meeting virtually, the public will be able to participate via these methods: email, phone, logging into a web session, or participating in person. When participating, please provide your name for documentation purposes. If you're watching, you can stream the meetings through City TV, accessed at www.youtube.com/user/Columbia SC Government. You may submit letters and statements via email to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov leading up to and/or during the meeting, as this account will be monitored throughout the proceedings. Emails and letters sent during the meeting will be read into the record. Emails or letters received prior to the meeting have been forwarded to the commission. You can participate via phone, calling 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 2552. Those participating by phone will receive 3 options on how to participate. Star 1 will allow you to listen. Star 2 will allow you to record a voicemail message that will be read into the record. And Star 3 will allow a participant to be placed in a queue so they may speak live when prompted. Please make sure your computer audio is muted if calling in live via your phone. There's virtual participation via the web. You can join the virtual meeting at publicinput.com/COCDDRC-OCT 2021. And if you're here in person today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment. I'll call the roll. Ms. Branham?
Here.
Mr. Broom?
Here.
Ms. Jaco?
Here.
Mr. Salibi?
Here.
And Mr. Wolf?
Here.
We have quorum.
In order to avoid ex parte communications, DDRC members are under strict instructions not to discuss cases under consideration with the public or with each other outside of the public forum. The meeting typically starts with staff calling the case, giving a summary of the project, and then calling on the applicant to present if they wish. Decisions are typically made in one evening. Decisions may be appealed within 30 days to a court of competent jurisdiction. Oaths will be administered individually as we hear either from applicants or from live speakers. Applicants with requests before the DDRC are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by DDRC or staff regarding request. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. Staff has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. And I've asked that they kind of give a minute warning today for people as well. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
The DDRC uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the DDRC or the general public wants to discuss any item on the consent agenda, they must speak up immediately after the consent agenda is read and ask that a project be removed from the agenda and considered as part of the regular agenda during the meeting. The DDRC then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please read the consent agenda?
Certainly. The first case is 306 Saluda Avenue. This is a request for design approval for an addition and exterior changes in the Wales Garden Architectural Conservation District. The next is 1920 Henderson Street, a request for preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill and for design approval for exterior changes in the Landmark District. There's also 1131 Shirley Street, a request for design approval for an accessory structure in the Melrose Heights Oakland Architectural Conservation District.
Is there anyone from the DDRC that would like an item removed from the consent agenda? All right. Is there anyone from the public, either here today in person or who is participating virtually, that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? When participating, please provide your name for the minutes. Please communicate by sending an email to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or communicate via phone by pressing *2 to leave a voicemail or *3 to speak in person. We will pause to allow communication from the public. Checking all technology portals. So, yeah.
We don't have any emails at this time.
Okay. Good, okay.
No.
Was there anything?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda and also the September minutes?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda and approve the September minutes.
Second?
Second.
Thank
Mr. Broom?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
you. Yes?
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, ready for the regular agenda, first case?
The first case on the regular agenda is 4404 North Main Street. This is a request for certificate of design approval for exterior changes and site improvements in the North Main Corridor Overlay District. This proposal is for the renovation of the existing building to serve as office and storage for janitorial business. The applicant is seeking exceptions from the North Main Corridor guidelines due to the unique site conditions and due to the proposed use of the building. The evaluation which follows is for the renovation section of the North Main Corridor guidelines. So the guidelines state pedestrian connections from the public sidewalk to the primary entrance must be provided in the form of a sidewalk with landscape buffer to the parking area. With the current condition of the property, which is a continuous curb cut along the length of the parcel, while non-conforming to current conditions for parking lots, the existing buildings are in a location that prevents adequate circulation and parking space in front of the building. As well, the circulation space for adjacent parcels depends on crossing property lines in the paved area to access the parking spaces. Given these conditions, it's not feasible to provide a pedestrian connection from the public sidewalk to the building entrance without impeding access to the only available parking and also exacerbating pedestrian safety issues. Then the guidelines also state all applicants shall check with the City of Columbia Land Development Planner to determine what's required regarding the landscape ordinance for renovation projects. Whether landscape ordinance is invoked or not, a landscape buffer shall be provided between the pedestrian walks and the parking areas. The staff comments are that due to the continuous curb cut and the circulation pattern, an exception is being requested to the landscape requirement. In the building design section, the guideline states window openings cannot be decreased unless approved by the DDRC. The proposal includes retaining storefront windows on the left portion of the facade and removing both large storefront windows on either side of the door on the right building facade. The removal of the windows is due to the applicant's security concerns. The guidelines are intended to support a vibrant commercial corridor over time by maintaining and encouraging flexible building spaces that engage pedestrian interest. Staff has concerns about removing existing storefront windows and setting a precedent which could have a negative impact on the corridor over time. A preferred alternative to removing the window openings and filling in with CMU block and brick veneer would be to retain the openings in the CMU wall and fill with a more durable material such as brick, glass block, or something else that would provide the needed security, but retain the original openings for future windows to be reinstalled with minimal damage to the wall. Staff recommends approval of the request, including an exception to the sidewalk connection and the landscape buffer, conditional upon a solution to be worked out with staff for the right-hand facade that maintains the structural window openings without the requirement of storefront glass. And I'm not sure if the applicant is present today. Is the applicant here?
Yes, hi. Do you wish to comment on anything?
No, I'm here if you have
Okay.
any questions for me.
Okay.
We have, first, let me thank you for the work you do, and certainly the expertise that's been provided by the staff and us as we navigated this process. Being proactive, we went in to consult with them prior to any submission, and we ended up following this path that we're here now.
Sir, just, let me technically, just, can you state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yeah. I didn't know.
No, sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm Clarence Hill. I'm the designer, along with John Tucker, for the owner of the property, 4404 North Main Street, Mr. Irvin Wesley. And I swear that I tell the truth.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Again, the staff has been more than helpful to us. We navigated this process due to the existing age of the building and the condition of the building. We moved forward to try to raise the level of aesthetics and to improve the quality of what the building actually was. You see the existing conditions there. We addressed those, and given the concern of the owner with respect to safety and security, we ended up with the right side being closed, as you stated. Now, we have gone over and over with the staff about the requirements for the overlay to maintain the integrity of open, not closing in any windows. So we prefer the design we have. We hope that the commission will consider what we have created here in terms of improving the aesthetics in the area. And we hope that you will be able to give us consideration and allow us to move forward with the design we've created. John, you want to say anything? So with that, we appreciate the waivers you've given us, and we will certainly do what we can with respect to landscaping to maintain those ordinances that you put in place. If I have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to open up to commissioners. Any commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Brennan?
First of all, Mr. Hill, I just want to just applaud you for really a nice, straightforward, but very uplifting design for what the building was and where it's going. So I just want to applaud you for that, you know, looking at how to rehabilitate some of our areas, and this
Right.
is a really nice, clean approach to that. So I really appreciate that.
John Tucker's here with me. He was the principal designer of that. I don't want to take that credit.
Okay.
I got to live with
great.
him, so.
Then I applaud you, sir. But I do agree that, that not necessarily having to keep the existing windows as
Yeah.
the staff recommends. I do think that there's a way to perhaps express the fact that there was a window there by recessing it, and I think that's what the staff is proposing, that it be something that reflected what the integrity of the building was to begin with, but
Yes.
maintain the security that you're
Right.
looking for.
Right.
And I think you could still keep a lot of the detailing that you're showing in the brickwork and the reveals and that sort of thing within that same patterning.
Okay. Well, any other
Is
questions?
I have a question. Speaking of the brick, the veneer, is that to be sandblasted? And, I mean, you show two different colors. It's white right now, but on the rendering, you got a little darker color.
What you see, I don't know if you have in front of you, but the existing building is was plastered. It was, there was some tiles there. They moved them off. What you see is the impression that the mortar made along the surface of the exterior. We're going to put an additional brick on in front of that. That's a new brick.
Oh, okay.
What you see here in the bottom right, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know. Those are new brick. It's a grayish, brownish brick
I see that in your
with the
section.
band. If you go back to the pictures and look above the one that you see there, and you look above the door on the left, you'll see how jagged that wall is. So it would be no way that we could sandblast that or get it smooth again. So we decided to put another exterior envelope of brick on the front and wrap it around the side so we can kill it on the side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions
Now-
or clarifications?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just was checking the commissioner, any other comments or?
We have given due consideration to the staff's dialogue with respect to how we manage the right side. And we've been in consultation with the owner as well. We think we can address the situation with respect to maintaining the integrity of the opening, but use in relief a brick. We would take that brick and set it back about 1.5 inches and just maintain that opening, and maintain that opening. I think that'll satisfy the entire commission request as well as the staff.
Staff, any comment on that?
I mean, that sounds like what we had recommended, so.
I
if-
think
if
so.
the
It
commission
sounds to me
is-
like we're all
okay with
agreeing
that.
with the
Mhm.
recommendation, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Okay. All right,
Thank you again.
thank you. We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You may email cocboardmeeting@columbiase.gov or go on the web at publicinput.com/cocDDRC-OCT2021. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 2552. Then press star 2 to begin leaving a voicemail. If you would like to speak live, press star 3. We will now hear any comments from anyone else here in person or received in writing or voicemails or email.
We do not have any voicemails, callers, or emails.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready to move then to, just making sure, are we ready to move on? All right. I think we can move to a motion. I will accept a motion in a second.
I'd like to make a motion to grant a certificate of design approval for the exterior changes to the building located at 4404 North Main Street, including an exception to the sidewalk connection and landscape buffer requirements, conditional upon a solution for the right-hand facade that maintains the structural window openings with details to be worked out with staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next case.
The next case is at 800 UG Street. This is a request for certificate of design approval for changes to an existing building. Oops. I don't know where my map went, but to an existing structure, in addition and site improvements. Let's see, I'll just go ahead and go to the beginning of their presentation. The proposals for the renovation and expansion of the existing South Carolina State Credit Union facility on the block between UG and Pulaski and between College and Green Streets. Most of the block is controlled by the credit union except for the southeast quadrant. The scope of the work includes demolition of the existing one-story building, reskinning of the existing two-story building, a three-story addition, and the relocation of an existing drive-through, which requires a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals. An additional surface parking lot will be built on the southeast corner of Pulaski and College. As additional contextual information, this site is at the northeast corner of Green and UG and at the west end of the Green Street Bridge project. The bridge is being constructed to span the railroad tracks and connect the U of SC campus to the river, which is the primary east-west connection envisioned in the Innovista Master Plan, for which the guidelines herein were created to support. This is a lengthy evaluation. I'm not going to read through it, but I will just read the staff recommendation, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. Staff recommends approval of the request with the following conditions: that all right-of-way improvements be coordinated with staff and SCDOT as required through the encroachment process, to include the provision of shade trees adjacent to the pedestrian zones wherever possible, as well as any changes to on-street parking, required sidewalks, landscaping, irrigation, and lighting. That the monument sign not exceed 6 feet in height from finished grade, and that all other details be coordinated with staff as the design develops through permitting. And the applicant did put together a PowerPoint. I don't know if they're here in person. Okay.
Yeah, I did actually intend to make a presentation.
Oh, okay.
I did that for y'all.
Oh, okay, we
Y'all
can,
here
well, we
for
can,
questions and, yeah.
okay, we can certainly just, I guess, click through the PowerPoint that they very nicely put together. So, let's see. And this was also all in the DDRC packet, so I'll keep it short. But basically, this is the site plan. You can see this is actually north is to the left. So this is the, you can see the new parking lot at the top, which is across Pulaski Street from the existing complex. And then the gray portion is what's not their property. This is sort of the addition that you're looking at on the corner of Green and UG. There's another look at the site, the existing conditions. These are the existing buildings that you're probably familiar with. These are the portions that are being demolished. And then this sort of outlines where the addition is and how it connects to the existing building. The new parking area. Floor plan. Site plan. And then I think these renderings really do tell the story of how the new addition connects to the existing building and what they're doing to the existing building to try to tie it all together. And this is the UG Street elevation on the west. A materials palette. The Green Street elevation. The drive-through, which is just being moved and then reduced in size. Some signage.
Lucinda, did they express any concerns with staff recommendations?
No, I don't think so. We've talked through most of these things,
Okay.
and it was just, yeah, it felt like a big enough project to
Yeah, no.
deserve the public presentation and any questions that you guys might have. So, yeah, staff is, thinks it meets most of the guidelines, and we're still working together on some of the encroachment stuff and the street trees, and they've been coordinating with the Green Street streetscape and bridge project, so that seems to be going pretty well. So, yeah. But they're here if y'all have any questions.
Well, let me, I'll see if any commissioners have any questions, and we can go from there. Anybody?
No, just job well done.
Oh, yeah, that's an exciting project, yeah.
And we have no issues with the recommendation.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Oh, you do have a question?
I know that area very well, and by there 100,000 times. And I thank you for the improvement. It's going to look a lot better. But what I'm concerned about is the Green Street. My understanding, they're putting up a traffic light at that intersection. And I understand they put in precast curb and gutters along Hughes, am I correct? And Green Street is a bridge over the tracks, and it's almost complete. My question is that going to generate a heavy traffic on Green Street from UG? Because I'm concerned about your building being that close to the traffic pattern. You know, God forbid, they have accidents, and we don't want a getaway car come crashing into your building, especially in the corner. And that's my only concern about that corner of that building.
The location of the building along Green Street? Right. Yeah, will you come up here, please, since you're, and state your
And who
name?
you with?
I'm Chris Beard, I'm with Boudreaux, we're the architect.
Pedro, okay.
And do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. All
So
right, so you heard the concern, right?
we
Yes.
do,
Okay.
and so we were just trying to abide by the recommended setbacks, basically knowing that that corner is very prominent. And there's basically the minimum setback for 10 feet, or the maximum setback for 10 feet. We actually applied for staff approval to move it back 12 feet, just to get a little bit further back and make sure we have proper sight lines. We know traffic's gonna be increased in that area, but we actually think more of our traffic would probably go more down College Street, because that's actually where more of the staff would be coming in. We actually think the public would be coming in more down the College Street entrance as opposed to the Green Street. And so we don't think our project would actually increase traffic, but there will be an increase in traffic eventually. I hope that helps. I'm not sure if it does.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I was looking at the renderings, and I see that in her presentation, it shows 2 columns on the front entrance in the lobby on the front. The old rendering I was looking at, when at the office, showed 1 column each in the back. And I think you're showing 2 columns in the back and the front.
Correct. It's 2 columns in the front and the back now.
I was going to say something about it, but done deal.
Yeah.
Any other questions from staff, or are we good over there? Okay. All right. Commissioners? All right. We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You may email at cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or go on the web at publicinput.com/cocddrc-OCT 2021. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 2552. Then press star 2 to begin leaving a voicemail, or if you'd like to speak live, press star 3. We will now hear comments from anyone in person, or received in writing, or via phone or email.
We don't currently have
clear?
any emails or voicemails.
Okay, great. Then I will ask for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to grant a certificate of design approval for additions and site improvements at 800 UG Street with the following conditions. All right-of-way improvements be coordinated with staff and South Carolina Department of Transportation through the encroachment process to include provision of shade trees adjacent to pedestrian lanes or zones wherever possible, as well as any changes to on-street parking, required sidewalks, landscaping, irrigation, and lighting. 2, that the monument sign not exceed 6 feet in height from finished grade. And 3, that all other details be coordinated with staff as the design develops through permitting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you all very
It's a
much. Appreciate it.
Great project, yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next case.
All right, this is 3012 Longleaf Road. It's a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction in the Melrose Heights, Oakland Architectural Conservation District. This is on a vacant lot at the edge of the district, meaning there is limited historic context in the immediate area. The current proposal is for new construction of a 5,700 square foot, 2-story, single-family home with an attached garage at the basement level. Staff has recommended adjusting certain details of the house to be more in keeping with historic district patterns for single-family residences, most of which the applicant is amenable to. However, staff suggests that initial focus and comments today from DDRC be focused on revisions to big picture items such as adjusting massing and roof forms. As proposed, the building has a massing that is more varied than typically seen in the neighborhood. The configuration of 1-story and 2-story sections of the building creates a complicated roof form, not typical of the neighborhood. This is due in part to an effort to disguise the 2-story portions on the house from visibility at the front. But the result is a combination of forms and pitches that is not typical of the neighborhood. Examples from the neighborhood typically have a centralized 2-story block with 1-story wings to either to one or both sides under separate roofs. Staff recommends consolidating the 2-story portions, similar to other neighborhood examples, and eliminating the need for complicated roof forms and to simplify the overall massing. Staff initially recommended that the applicant explore options of using a separate garage structure with living space above to accommodate spaces currently proposed for the house and thus reduce the size and simplify the massing of the house. However, the applicant is not interested in this option. However, staff does believe that there are options to expand the house either further back on the property using wings connected by a hyphen so that it appears separate, or that there's an option of slightly reorganizing the second floor so that the 2-story portion is consolidated and may thus be further separated from the 1-story wings and eliminate the need for roofs to hide the 2-story portion on the back of the house. And the applicant did submit a little bit of additional information today that was forwarded onto DDRC. If you did not have a chance to look at that, that is this slide here to show context. Some drawings of other houses in the neighborhood that have a kind of colonial revival design similar to this one. Staff did look at this design that was sent, and, sorry, can you move forward? Yeah. Just to illustrate a little bit what staff means by the complicated roof forms, looking specifically at the roofs of the existing historic homes, which have a 2-story mass under a very simple roof form, one of which has a 1-story wing under a separate roof form, whereas as submitted, the house has multiple roofs connected at different levels. And you can see in the pink highlighted the way the roof of the proposed house at the center contrasts with the other houses on either side. If you can move forward. That's just up close because it was small. You can go forward And two, this is just an illustration of, very rough, obviously, of where the two-story mass of the building could be located, if it could be consolidated and centralized a bit more. The hashed areas on either side could be the one-story wings, whereas in the center, you could have the two-story mass of the building if the floor plan was slightly rearranged. That would be more in keeping in form and massing with existing houses in the neighborhood. So for staff recommendations, staff finds that there are significant parts of the overall proposed design that are not in keeping with Section 5 of the Melrose Heights Oakland Architectural Conservation District Design Guidelines. And as such, staff recommends deferring the requests so that these bigger issues such as massing, size and scale, and roof forms may be further developed to better meet district patterns. Do you have any questions for staff?
Does any commissioner have any questions at this point?
Do-
Is the applicant here?
I have
Yeah.
a question on the presentation. I know that hill, I forgot the name of the street.
Shirley and Longleaf?
And if you're standing on Longleaf, it goes straight up. With the house, it's going to be that much higher. Is that what your concern is?
Well, I mean, that's part of the concern. I mean, it's, if you can look at the pictures here that provided that show the lot. There are houses behind it that are going to sit up above it. There are houses over on the street, other street, not houses, sorry, apartment buildings that sit very high up on a hill. It's not unusual. You know, this lot has difficult topography, which they've tried to kind of accommodate with retaining walls and putting the garage, you know, at basement level. So it's not, as far as the height as you see it from the street, I'm not sure that I think it's incompatible. My concern is more the overall massing and the way that the parts of the building interact with one another.
You have that letter on the presentation,
The what, I'm sorry?
the presentation letter? You gave us to us this morning.
Oh, yeah, the applicant is here and he will,
Oh, the
he will
applicant has that?
discuss, yeah, he'll
Okay.
discuss his points in just a moment.
Is there any other questions for staff at this point? Yeah, okay. Is applicant present? Please, come on down. If you can, state your name and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I'm Marty White of Marty White Design Group in Columbia, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
We know this is a fairly large home, and kind of the context of what we're trying to do is tuck as much underneath the roof line as much as possible, because when you're standing in the street looking at this house, you are going to be looking up to it. We're actually recessing the garage into the basement level and wrapping a retaining wall around to mask that whole lower level with the intentions of squatting the facade, the front facade on the two wings especially, because if you don't do that, that left-hand side where the garage is actually has living space above it that is a full story, and that wall becomes extremely tall. It almost becomes a two-story house and then a two-story house that just jumps down the hill. So bringing the grade across to a retaining wall and then curving it as far left as possible and then tucking the driveway around was used to accomplish that, but also to eliminate the view of garage doors to the street. I believe you will see there's, if you could go to the side elevation. There you go. Those garage doors right there, the wall to the right would come out and curve towards the street. So if you're standing at the end of the driveway, you would probably glimpse the end of the third garage door. You wouldn't see the first one at all. You might see a little bit of the second one. But tucking that under was the number one thing. If you look at the rear elevation of the house, there's a lot of wall. I mean, it's a massive wall. Originally, the customer wanted to have a full two-story house. Very Williamsburg, a lot of windows. And knowing the area, having worked with DDRC before, I said, that's probably not going to happen. I said, we're going to need to try to soften this thing down, combine some of these windows a little bit, Their goal was to have a lot of glass, but to consolidate wall space as much as possible, tuck it underneath a roof. It is a lot of square footage in a house that has a very small package. It's kind of like having a fellow that looks tiny, but he's very, the house behind it is the Powell residence. It's a very large stucco, sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright style with a massive roof. That house, I was actually surprised when Rachel emailed me and told me the square footage of that house, because it looks a lot larger than it truly is. I was trying to do the opposite with this house. It does have a suburban feel to it. Trying to pull in some downtown aesthetics was the goal. One of the things that we did do from the original plan was remove the portico. We had a front portico that was one level, and we pulled that off to try to soften some of the in and out jogs and then just the complexity of the house. Dormers were necessary for the second floor of that house because of the bedrooms that are up there. The number of bedrooms that are going into this house are actually 4 bedrooms upstairs. And is that correct? Am I? Can't remember. 4 bedrooms upstairs tucked into that, with the 2 little shoulder wings on either side being bathroom and then bedroom on the right-hand side. That was the intent, was to try to tuck it away. I've actually submitted with the other drawing that shows the other 2 houses. I actually went and measured those houses last night. Yesterday afternoon, I went and asked the residents, would you mind if I pull some tape so they're accurate to width and height? I pulled from the GIS the images to line up what I had done, and it did line up correctly. Massing-wise, the facade walls were what I was looking at more than the roof line, because of the elevation of the house being on the hill. As it lays down, you're not going to see as much of that. The house on the right side, right there on the screen, when you're standing at the road, you barely see any of that roof. It's, when I drew it out, looking at the GIS map plus the measurements in the field, I was surprised at how tall that roof really was. But anyway, so that's where we've been with design development so far.
I'll open it up to questions, commissioners, Mary Beth?
So, let me just say, I spent a lot of time looking at this submittal when it was first sent. And what I didn't get as much time to do is see the new stuff that you sent recently.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to really look at that in detail enough I picked up a couple of things, like you agreed with maybe some of the mullions in the windows you changed, and you lined up some of the sills and that sort of thing.
And actually modified them on that picture there.
Right. I will tell you that this kind of development gives me great pause, because even though you're meeting the setback requirements and whatnot, we're putting a really massive house in an area that has not had that kind of massing on that size lot. And even though the setbacks are allowed to be doing that way, there's also kind of respect for the neighborhood, right? And the fact that the Powell house, it may be very similar in square footage, but it has much more land and property around it, so that it doesn't look like it's dwarfing that, right? So, I mean, I'm an architect. I face the same challenges. I totally appreciate that. But, so I kind of disagree with staff in the sense that I agree that thank goodness you brought down some of the scale on the sides of the house in terms of the roof to help bring the scale down a bit. But it doesn't take away from the overall just real massing of this house. So because I haven't had time to really review some of the other changes, I appreciate these other elevations that you've shown. I do think, and I don't know if you've explored some of these, I know you've talked with staff back and forth, but I mean, the idea of maybe a hyphen that allows us to break up the massing. I'm not necessarily even suggesting it has to come down to 2 stories. I'm not even suggesting maybe, I realize that all the bedrooms, client wants them all on the same level, but there are ways architecturally, as you well know, to be able to kind of divide up the massing a bit, so that, but I also understand the constraints. I mean, frankly, what concerns me more is this massive retaining wall that the
It is a
neighbors are
massive
going to
wall,
be seeing.
yeah.
I don't know if there's any kind of requirement or things that we can do about that, but to me, that's more, almost more bothersome to me than the house
The
itself.
site plan actually has some elevations on it. The wall, I managed to work it out to where the height of the most height of the wall at the back corner would be, I believe, 11 feet.
Right,
It might be hard to see on that small.
no, I can
small
see it.
page. Doing the, once it gets up there, there you go. The retaining wall on the back to the left of this one, if you're looking at plan left, top
Mhm.
left, that will be literally almost at grade. But then as it travels up the hill to the right, it's almost 11 feet tall.
right.
It doesn't start creeping up to 11 feet until you get past where the swimming pool is drawn. I think that's about 5 or 6 feet there, and then it just abruptly goes up. As it comes down the site, coming plan down, the wall comes down to, I believe it's 30 inches at the most near the end, and then it gets shorter as it trails out. That'll all, of course, depend on how the lot next door is, the grading is over there. But the front wall, I only did a retaining wall from the middle where the sidewalk is going towards the driveway in order to get that level for the front yard to literally just sink the house down into the ground as much as possible.
Right.
We already know from previous DDRC involvement with the neighbors to the left of this house that they were concerned about water. And I know that that's not something that y'all worry, you deal with, but I know it's going to be an issue. So I was trying to stamp that out. So I actually took the grades from now granted, this is from GIS, so it's not exact, but trying to round it in to keep it as close to pre-construction conditions as possible coming up that driveway. So I set the basement level, I believe it's at 102. I think that's the grade that I had of that. So it's an incline going up the driveway, but it's not a very steep one. And then turning into the house. That dictated really what I did with the rest of it. Less going to an 8-foot ceiling in the basement, which is possible. You could sink down into the house, but the problem is on the right-hand side, the retaining wall gets to the back wall of the house, and it's almost reaching up to the soffit line. It's just below the soffit, about literally 18 inches to 2 feet. Being that it's going to be right on the retaining wall, it kind of limits us from being able to do the hyphen. Because I did think about that. There is a house on Shirley that is not part of the district, that's near Trentham, and it's a beautiful house. It's a monster. From the road, you cannot tell it's that big. From the aerial photo, it's huge. And they did that with the hyphens. They have the land to do it with. This just doesn't have it unless we start to pull forward to the street,
Right.
which is just going to push it up even higher. So this is a very difficult lot to work with, and we knew that from the go, but trying to keep that retaining wall from being just a 20-foot tall wall was the challenge. I believe that there's 27 feet. Rachel, is that correct, from point to point with grade now?
I counted 22, but
Was
it
it
could be
22?
27.
Yeah, so there was a lot of
That's a lot.
distance. So we did not want to come in at grade at the bottom and cut that thing right in.
Sure, sure.
So
I know.
terracing it off and using the house as a retaining purpose was kind of the goal.
What is the front setback, staff, they have to have?
Well, within the historic district, there's no true, it's just whatever's adjacent, what the established
I
setback
gotcha.
is.
Okay.
On this lot, I looked up the zoning, the new zoning, it's a 15-foot minimum, so they have a 25 right now.
I mean, I'm not proposing to bring it up 15 to 15 feet, but I was just curious if it.
I actually did place it on the 25 for the structure. The steps are proud of that.
I have a question about the retaining wall. Over there on the right-hand corner, your grade, I can't read this very well. Your current grade is what? Up against, say the wall's built, is it 123?
I believe so, yes.
And the finished slab is 111?
Yes.
So that's 11 to 12 feet high.
Yeah, the backyard actually would terrace up a little bit into the corner, and then water would divert kind of down the retaining walls between the wall and the house, and then down the back. And it will have to have some subgrade drainage to take it away
Right.
to the front. But yeah, the backyard goes up, I think it comes up pretty close to the same level as the floor of the house.
How high is the wall above the grade in the very back, once
I
it's
believe it's
built?
about 11 feet.
No, your grade, your grade and your wall. How
Yeah.
high is the
The
wall?
wall
up
from
against-
the grade in the backyard to the top of the wall would be about 11 feet in height.
My question is, I'm standing on the regrade hill.
On the
up against
hillside,
Yeah,
on the
How high is it
hillside,
from the
it's gonna,
grade,
it's gonna have to have a
finished
rail.
top of the wall.
Am I understanding them correctly?
So you're putting rails on top of
Yes,
the
sir.
wall?
If you're standing up on the grade above and you're looking down the wall,
Right,
there would have to be some sort of guardrail there. There would have to be something to keep people from falling down, because you're right at the property line, and the power property is behind that. As you approach that drop-off, I mean, that's a drop-off, that's 11 feet. Raising the wall higher to keep someone from, to create a barrier is possible. It's just going to make the wall even taller. So we decided that probably the best move would be to do some sort of a fence, not an open rail. It would have to be a fence that has pickets that would comply to keep people from going through it.
right.
And it would be about 4-inch distance between. So we're thinking probably some sort of an aluminum anchored fencing.
Thank you.
I couldn't see from GIS, and you can't navigate the property very well to get out there to see what the Powells have on their retaining wall. I believe they have a large shrub that's across theirs, and then if you go through that shrub, you're going to go down the wall. So this one, that was actually one of the first comments that I made to the customer. I said, this is going to have, it's a heck of a wall for one, but two, it's going to have some sort of barricade at the top to protect people from falling. And I think that wall is really the largest challenge with this whole property. You know, when I first looked at it, I said, oh, great, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
But once I started thinking about how to terrace that house out and hide the garage, because that was a very important feature, was they actually purchased this as 2 lots and developed a boundary to create the double lot. That was one of the key features, was to have that 3-car garage. And I did look at separating it based on staff's recommendation of doing an outbuilding. And in order to do that, certainly the house can be shrunk, but the need of a lot of the space that is actually on the first floor, sure, they can do without that extra living room. It's nice to have that extra living space, especially in a house of this size and the price point. It's nice to have 2 living areas in a house like this, but they could do without that. The guest bedroom could have been relocated, so the main level could have been changed, but then the garage still has to be underneath the house in some way, shape, or form. So we're still cutting underneath it, still turning a driveway underneath it, and we're just occupying more land by building an outbuilding, most likely the back left corner, plan left, at the rear. And that's just putting more mass on the property. So I kind of real quickly said, well, that's not really accomplishing what we're trying to do, us or staff.
I'm not sure that I really like the fact that 3-car garage and you need to, I mean, I appreciate that it is below grade or down, using the grade to its advantage, but that's just adding more mass to your upper story that you're totally saying may or may not really be needed, but you're adding it. So again, it's just kind of creating that overall massiveness that I feel like maybe could be, and I appreciate that you looked at this, but I feel like maybe it needs a little more.
If we go, I don't know who's rolling the screen, but let's go back to the basement level, please. There you go. So the back left corner could occupy the 3rd bay, so we could push that leg that comes down, we could push that in. But if we do that, we're eating into the backyard. So if we do that, we would actually prefer to pull the house forward. So the retaining wall that comes in just past that third bay now would pretty much remain where it is. So the house would just pull forward another 10 or 12 feet. And since we don't have a minimum setback, the 25 is recommended, that's what we would do. In doing that, it's going to steepen the front yard or raise the retaining wall at the street level. The garden wall would just get taller. It's currently designed for about 30 inches, I believe is what I put on there. And so we would have to go up to about 5. So then when you're driving down the road, you look right and you're looking at a 5-foot-tall wall rather than a 30-inch wall that gradually gets taller as it gets past the house. So that was another issue that I looked at. And Rachel and I worked on a couple of ideas of how to eliminate that jog out on the front. And again, modifying that main floor with that living area is possible to push the jut out in, so that the only thing that sticks forward would be the 2-story front. But I think we've got more that is concerned with staff beyond that one, so I didn't make any changes to it yet. We actually had another version of this house that we were going to submit, and Rachel and I both knew that it was not going, there was no possible way the house was going to fly. It was a full 2-story. It was massive. And it was more along the lines of the apartments that are on Shirley Street on the right, that type of massing. And I did not know, and we never discussed it, that those were not in the district. I thought they were. And then when I found out that this property was the only one on that street that is in district, and it's kind of separated from the others, I was like, well, wow, this is so divorced from the district. And there's so many different styles around it. I mean, it's almost like they threw every style in and hit puree, including the Powell house. But then I said, well, maybe that's to an advantage, that we could maybe get some elements of the district intertwined into the design of the house, but maybe introduce some others that would make that roof not be so, right there. The dormers cutting into the roof was actually an idea to do that. Staff wanted me to lower the soffit line on that front elevation to more of the first floor level. The customer wanted me to push it back up. But getting it to be in that mid-range took it from looking like a 1-story home with this massive hat sitting on top of it. And actually, there's comment also on there about the roof pitch being a little different. It's an 8 and 12 on the mid-section of the house, and then I hid into, I believe it's a 10 on 12 for the wings. I tried to hide that with the way I would tie it together in order to bring that roof line down. The lower that front soffit goes, the higher that roof is just going to get. So, and
Well,
the only,
I was just going to, I'm encouraged to hear that you and staff have been trying to work through
Yes, we
these
have.
challenges, because, I mean, I agree this is a unique opportunity, and it is within the district, so, and I'll let you resume in just a second. I mean, I really am inclined to think that we need to defer and keep working on a solution that makes everybody happy on this one. But tell us, any other highlights you want to hit from what you said
honestly,
today?
being here today was just to get some information back from you guys on what you would prefer to see, so that we can apply that into the design. I mean, we know that we're going back to the computer to work on this.
Yeah.
This plan is a little bit different than what actually, we have that jerkin roof on the right side elevation. That gable is gone now. That's all roof line, and on the front elevation, the jog out to the right, it just trails up and runs into the 2-story portion. So I was able to soften that down. The left-hand side is just there, and there's not a good way to kill that width without making it one flat wall, which we did not want to do, because I believe that would make it look extremely suburban.
Well, it sounds like we're inching there. I was going to ask staff, did you have any other comments or follow-up after getting the new material today, or are we still digesting that?
Well, yeah. One option I haven't discussed with Marty, which, I mean, I just want to put out there, when we have done, what are they, subcommittees before, if there are kind of design elements that we want to have talk through a little bit more. I mean, obviously, if Marty's open to that, or if y'all are, that is an option as well, just to say.
Do we feel is that needed, do you think?
I'm not sure. It's up to the
Yeah,
DDRC if they feel like that would be productive, or Marty, if he thinks that would be
I mean,
productive.
there's a lot of challenges here to make
There
this
are.
a successful project.
Rachel and I have worked very well together. I
I'm
mean, you know,
sure.
we've built a very good rapport. I mean, I'm fine if you want to just, let's plug out a little bit further and see where we can go. We know that we're going to be back again.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
probably going to
no,
be back
no,
again.
and we want a
So,
successful project,
yeah,
definitely.
that's right.
But we definitely got to be respectful to what's going
And
on
we
here.
acknowledge this is a lot of house going in.
This is a 20 pounds of,
this-
oranges and 10 pounds here. Yeah, it's a lot.
This is a big one. So hiding it into the hill, but not letting that wall devour it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the goals. Hiding that garage was a big goal, and then reducing that facade was one of my main points that I wanted to try to accomplish. Unfortunately, we ran into a few issues with dormers and things like that, so it is something that is different than what you see in the Melrose Heights area. I did ride around yesterday when I was trying to find some of the other houses that were suggested to kind of look like, or the examples, and I found the two and was fortunate to walk up and speak with the folks. And the two-story house with the front gabled porch, they were actually on their porch, and they had a lengthy conversation with me, and they were like, that's a lot of houses going over there, but hey, good luck with that. And, they asked a few questions. Very nice people there.
Well, I think we're on the right road. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I have one more
Yes.
comment. I wanted to revise something that I said earlier. I like the idea of you simplifying some of these elements in the floor plan that will help kind of allow the roof forms not to be so complicated. I mean, I do agree that it's okay to bring some of the scale down, but it is a complicated roof that
Mhm.
it feels like it just
Yep.
could be a much more straightforward solution back to kind of what staff was recommending.
Yeah.
Whether it ends up being straight across like the other precedents in the area, maybe not, but at least don't let the three-car garage drive the massing on this house.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like.
I actually explored a little bit of that idea of taking the two-story sections and combining it with the first one, and when I did that, that just became a 48-foot-long ridge. And I said, wow, that's quite a bit. I feel like the shoulders are more of an issue.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know that we need a real workshop for this. I do think that we're obviously already working well together, and I appreciate you coming here to let us see where you got so far, but I do think a little bit more work really needs to happen and to massage it a bit more so that
Yep.
we can really be sensitive to the neighborhood and to the massing in this lovely, quaint neighborhood that I'm very familiar with, and I just want to kind of maintain some of that character that it deserves.
I did want to ask a question. One of the recommendations was reducing the size of the windows. And my thought was, is if we do that, we're pushing ourselves to the point where the wall starts to look a little naked, and it may need shutters on it. To me, that complicates the elevation even more. And I was hoping to get some feedback from you guys on how you feel about that. Is that something that you would prefer to see, or would you prefer to stay away from shutters on a house like this? I just feel like it's too many vertical elements when we start doing that.
I don't want to see more brick that's going to add to the massing feel, but even if it's covered up by a shutter. I like the simplicity and the cleanness of it.
That's really what we were going for.
Opposed to-
This is going to be a,
But I do like let me just finish, but
Sure.
I do like the proportions of the windows of the other two houses.
Mhm.
So that are longer and thinner. I don't know, you might just think about maybe it's I don't know, I will say, I do like the proportions of the two houses you show on either
Mhm.
side, the window proportions. I'm not trying to reduce necessarily, like, there's two windows here. Hey, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think too, when you added the mullion between the windows, if you beef that up a little bit, the windows can be thinner and still take up more space of the wall. That's just something to think about, how your dimensions work there.
yeah, one of the concerns from the customer was wanting to utilize as much glass as possible. And it was suggested doing triple windows on either side of the front door, and I said, I don't think it is in the district, but I don't think that it goes very well with this. So doing those are twin 36 by 7-foot windows. They're tall. Instead of doing transoms. So that was the idea, was to get some width, but also to keep the length, so it does have that linear look. In the beginning, the house really mimicked the one to the left with the 2-story part, but then it has the shoulders on either side, and the second floor shoulders, and then the 1-story shoulders. And that was just too much wall. So I suggested that we separate it and then combine the windows on the lower level and then do the single window for the dormer above.
I don't know, was one of your comments, Richard, was to maybe bring this center portion down a bit? Was that one of your comments? Because I was just trying to see what's happening upstairs where you have those windows, there's no floor. It's just allowing natural light into that open space below?
No, those 2 dormers are actually bedrooms.
No, I meant the windows.
Above the door.
Oh, the door, that's a 2-story foyer. We did squat that down. You can faintly see on that drawing the dotted in ceiling line. That's the ceiling height of, it's a 10-foot ceiling on the main floor, 9 foot for the second floor. And that front portion is going to have a clipped cathedral tying into the 2-story part of that foyer. It could be brought down a little bit more. I don't think that we could get it down to the soffit line and make it effective with windows above the door, unless it went to a single window, which is more indicative of like an English Tudor or a manor house. I mean, that is possible.
I'm just looking at it more as a monumental looking entry there that doesn't seem to be in character with any of the other
Right,
entries.
yes,
And,
I agree.
I mean, it could be a way you'd actually bring it all the way down and you'd have a third dormer there. I mean, I'm not proposing that I'm redesigning it, but again, anything to help say I'm fitting into my context
Yes.
better in terms of the massing and scale
I had
of
not-
all the elements.
I had not actually explored the idea of maybe a third dormer. That's possible. I mean, that could look good, and that would bring that facade down, and
Right, and then
it does create more roof, but like we all know that as you're standing in front of, you're looking at an architectural form now, when you're standing in front of it, you're not going to see as much of that, if a lot at all. You're not going to see a lot of that.
and simplifies the roof, that's what Rachel said.
Yeah.
Simplifying
That's right.
the roof response.
And that's exactly what I was hoping to hear from you guys, was suggestions on things like that. Because this is, getting to this point, and the first version of what we did with the 2-story was, hey, this is what we came up with. I know you're not going to like it. The second one was almost like throwing a dart. And sometimes that's throwing a dart in the dark. We don't know until we get some feedback. So in effort of time, I mean, of course we have time. We knew we were going to go through DDRC. I told the customer that we would probably go through 2 or 3 times. And this is going to be a lot of back and forth, communication with preservation. So we're anticipating this and getting the ins and the outs. I would love to be able to get this to be less suburban, but still be able to maintain everything on the lower level of the garage, the main floor of the house, which is, can be maneuvered around a little bit, but fitting it on the property was the biggest problem. Pulling it forward, I'd love to pull it forward, but I know if I pull it forward, those retaining walls are just getting taller, or the yard's becoming steeper. So we kind of have a lot of variables here to
Yes,
deal
you
with.
do. Well, it'll be exciting to see the next version. All right, any other comments from staff?
Let me just say, I'm not opposed to doing a design strategy, I think that would be helpful.
Well, and that's why I had asked them earlier if they, what they wanted, and it sounded at the time
I'm
y'all were
perfectly
comfortable
fine.
doing
Yeah, I
staff
mean-
on staff. If you feel that need, I mean, you reach back out, we can go from there.
I mean, that's,
Okay?
if
Yes.
if y'all say that we should do that, then we'll do it.
Just as a note, a subcommittee meeting requires a formal motion from y'all to establish that. So that's just a factor. If y'all think it would be helpful and you want to do it, that's something that you would need probably to decide today.
Well, I'm gonna make the staff, I'm looking for staff's feelings on this. I mean, if you feel that y'all two can come to a better solution and want to bring it back next time?
I mean, I think Marty's getting
me
some
ask a
good
question.
feedback, and
Let me ask a question about that. So if you have to formalize that, that has to be done in a meeting, or can you do it on your own and then send it through Rachel and then say, hey, they want to form a meeting? Does it have to be done now?
You know,
it has to be done now.
It has to be done now.
The next time you come.
Then
Right.
Let's
Well,
go ahead
usually
and
we
do it then if
schedule,
we
well,
can.
don't we usually
I would like
schedule
to do
it?
it.
You want to do it? Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
and then
Yeah.
if we
Don't
decide that we
schedule those
don't
in
need
between
it, then.
meetings?
So y'all have to make, y'all have to make a motion to hold a subcommittee meeting. We would send out a doodle poll for scheduling purposes, and then we have to advertise it. So, you know, we usually try to schedule those pretty quickly if it's wanted.
So yes, thank you for clarifying that process. So if that's something you want to do, or do you want to try first with staff, then
Does-
look at that? So you are,
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Does that involve public input? That's just,
No, it's intended to be a working session between
Okay, yes.
commission members and,
gotcha, okay. Then yes, I'd like to do it.
okay, all right.
It is open to the public, because it's a meeting, but
Right.
we
But
do
it's-
not
Right.
allow
But it's just
comment.
amongst, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
Now that we're not virtual, I mean, I guess that would be conducted here, just like these meetings as well, or? Yeah, okay.
I'm down to say something in time.
Yes, okay, yeah, we're getting ready to move to, I think, some additional public input. Are we good? I think we're good right now, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. Oh, hold on, let me pause a second. Should we take anybody in person before we go through this, or does this? Let me go through it, and then we'll just take everybody. Start again. We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You can email at cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov, or go on the web at publicinput.com/cocddrc-OCT2021. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 2552. Then, press star 2 to begin leaving a voicemail, or if you would like to speak live, press star 3. We will now hear comments from anybody in person. Please come up and state your name.
Yeah, my name's Sidney Strickland. I own the duplex next door at 3016, 3018 Longleaf.
Okay?
I just come here to hear.
And do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I'm sorry?
Will you tell the truth in these proceedings?
I'm sorry, these hearing aids don't
That's
work
all
too
right.
good.
Will you tell the truth in these proceedings? Just, do you swear to tell the truth in these
Yeah, I swear
proceedings?
to,
Okay,
too.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, what it is, I've just been listening, and I've watched, looked at the plans, and, you know, that's a difficult lot. These guys have done good to try to figure out that thing, because, you know, I've got the duplex next door, and you walk up that hill, and you look down, it's a difficult lot. So I think that, you know, if y'all would work with them and try to help them figure out, because something needs to go on that lot. I mean, they paid a lot of money for that lot, and that property's valuable. So I'm just here to say that I hope that everything goes good for y'all. And I'm the neighbor next door, and I just hope that the drainage situation will be taken care of it when the house is built. And that's all I got to say.
No, well, thank you.
Okay.
Any follow-up questions? Are we good? Okay. Any other comments received in writing? or
We do.
voicemail?
We have 2 letters currently. The first is from Josh Shelton, so I'll go ahead and read that now. DDRC, I am writing in regards to 3012 Longleaf Road, TMS number 13902-08-12. Our neighborhood association supports the City of Columbia Preservation Office staff's findings and write-up which states that this building goes against the Melrose Heights Oakland Architectural Conservation District's design guidelines. Our neighborhood will welcome a new build on this property if it is in keeping with our guidelines and fits within the unique character of our neighborhood, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Historic Melrose Neighborhood Association requests that you reject or defer the submission and requests the applicants to work with city staff to create a design that is in keeping with our guidelines. Again, that's from Josh Shelton, the president of the Historic Melrose Neighborhood Association. The second one, it says, my name is Heather Mitchell, and I am an architect who lives around the corner at 1411 Shirley Street. I confess that I did not see the signs in advance and have not reviewed the submittal thoroughly. I just happened to be watching from out of town for another project on the agenda. I am emailing to share that as I look at these drawings and given how well I know the site and context, as currently designed, this house feels inappropriate for the site and neighborhood. Thank you, Heather Mitchell. And I don't believe we have any other voicemails or emails at this time.
Okay. All right, so I think we're ready to move to a motion here, or to a, based upon our conversation, I'll open the floor for a motion. So I guess I'll move that we create a subcommittee, is that what it's called, a committee?
I think you would make two separate motions.
Right.
And if you wish to defer, then you would make that motion and then a separate motion
I got
first.
you.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Brandon, do you want to tackle the
Well-
first motion?
Let's see. I would like to move to defer the 3012 Longleaf Road request for certificate of design approval in keeping with the staff recommendations.
Is that sufficient? All right, do I have a second?
Second?
Second.
Thank you, all right.
Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham,
Yes.
Ms. Jaco,
Yes,
Mr. Salibi,
Yes?
and Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes.
all right. Now I'll open up for the next motion.
So now I would like to move that we create a subcommittee for reviewing the design with the applicant and staff to look at the details in more detail.
Great, do I have a second?
Second?
Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham,
Yes.
Ms. Jaco,
Yes,
Mr. Salibi,
Yes?
and Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes.
all right, thank you. All right, great. Any other business on the agenda?
I just wanted to let y'all know, that Mr. Baker has stepped down from DDRC, and so we'll be exploring bringing in another at-large member for the commission. So we appreciate his service.
All right, great. Well, if there's no other business, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. And a second?
Second?
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.